Welcome to the NJCan training. Now to get started with NJCan, in your web browser you'll type www.njcan.org. From here, you're going to enter your username and password. If you're not sure of your username, you can contact Mr. Julian Hines or Cora, and either of them will have your username and password for you. Now, as soon as we log on, we'll be brought to the site administration site. This is the home page where you can access reports and portfolios for all of your students and get an idea of what students have been involved in. But in order to understand this site, you need to understand what's happening on NJCan. So let's go there now. But to get to NJCan, you'll notice here in the top black toolbar, the tab for Go to NJCan. Select that now. This is going to redirect you to the high school site. You'll know it's the high school site because you have topics bars along the blue toolbar. Many of our students will be more comfortable using the junior site though. So on the top right hand side, under the Go To button, you'll see Junior NJCan. Select that now. Now the junior site is different from the high school site. It has about 50% of the information that's available. And it's written at a 5th and 6th grade reading level, so it's accessible for many students. We're going to walk through this site looking at that light blue toolbar. So let's start by holding our mouse over Using Junior. Over Using Junior, we'll see there's 3 different topics. And what I want you to know is that we have an implementation framework that's going to give us an idea of how we can use NJCan Junior in the school. And there's different modules on here that you can use for your students to understand which activities you should do first and what reflections you should have there. And notice there's Model A, Model B, and Model C. You can go through and look this on your own to see which is most appropriate for your students. We're going to get started by going to Who Am I? Who am I is the first question on the topics bar, and because we're not sure what's in it, we're going to select Overview. Under Overview, you'll notice it gives an example of what we're talking about when we ask, Who am I? We're looking at your personality and interests. On the left-hand side, we have the topics bar, which breaks down Who am I? So we can learn about me, we can explore my community, focus on my school and activities, or think about my network. Let's look at Learn About Me. As soon as I select Learn About Me, I have different activities that populated on the left-hand side. Let's take a look at Qualities for Success. Once again, as soon as we make a selection, we're going to get an overview of what we just selected. So for Qualities for Success, it asks students, do you know what it takes to be successful when you grow up? In a job interview, employers want to learn about who you are. How would you answer the question, what are some of your best qualities? We also provide you with worksheets that you can use for students to hand out. This is what the Qualities for Success worksheet looks like. Notice how it starts off with different qualities and then asks questions to students for reflection, and that continues throughout. Now we give you the Microsoft Word document as well as the PDF so that in case you want to change any of these words for vocabulary words that they might be doing, you have the ability to do that. Once students complete the activities, they can also enter their reflections in here to save to their portfolio, so it'll print out later on in the reporting section. That's just Who Am I? We can also look at some of the tools available for students as well. So let's take a look at the Career Cluster Inventory. The Career Cluster Inventory is a list of 80 different activities that students will rank on a Likert scale. Either they don't like it, they're not sure if they like it, or like it very much. As students go through, they have the ability to save the inventory in case they don't finish it. And the great thing about the activity is that we try to make it as easy as possible for students to be able to relate to an activity. For example, going fishing. Now, if a student has never gone fishing before, the Explain button is there to help them. The Explain button tells them what the activity involves. So with going fishing, the skills and abilities needed are patience and a willingness to study, to be outside for long periods. It also tells them that if they like exploring nature or like watching animals, this might be something they're interested in doing. And it also tells them about different classes that they can learn more about these kind of things in. And we have that for every activity along the way. Once you complete the career cluster inventory, your results will look something like this. This is going to rank your interests into career clusters from what's most interesting to you to what's least interesting to you. So you'll see on my career cluster inventory, what's most interesting is hospitality and tourism. I do like working with people. From here, we're going to begin our exploration. So I selected hospitality and tourism career cluster. Notice on the left-hand side, there are different topics for us to take a look at, and they're involved with questions. So what would I do in this cluster? What skills do I need? What courses would I take in high school? What activities or hobbies should I have? So we can actually sort through occupations in this way. What might be helpful is how much do occupations in this cluster pay? Because then we can get an idea of what type of training is needed for the occupation. And this will help us understand what types of education might be needed. So for example, I might be interested in being a restaurant host. By selecting an occupation, I'll be redirected to the occupation page, which is going to give me an overview of what the occupation is. Notice how we also have information on here to possibly view a video to see a short day in the life of, as well as information on the overview page giving an explanation of what I would be expected to do. What we really want to look at, though, is things on the left-hand side in the topics bar. Some things that are helpful are, what skills do I need? Understanding what skills students have versus what they need in order to perform a certain occupation is really helpful. Another great question is, what will work be like? So understanding working with people, what type of physical conditions I'll be working in, and what's needed to have high work performance. Other helpful things could be, how do I prepare? This tells me the pathway needed in order to get to this occupation. So to become a restaurant host, I have to have a high school diploma or GED, and I must complete a short on-the-job training. I might also be interested in how much I would earn in this occupation. By selecting how much I would earn, I get this really neat graphic. If you're a graphics person, you'll love this, but if you're like me, you want to see the number version, so you can select View Number Version at the bottom. This tells me annual wages, but I can also look at monthly wages and hourly wages. The way that this is broken down is it tells us the beginning 25%, or how much I would make when I first started off in this occupation. The median is after I've been here for a couple of years, and the top 75% is for those who've been in the business for a while. So in New Jersey, restaurant hosts usually start off making around $8.32 an hour, and they usually will cap out around $10.95 an hour. Once again, this is a really helpful planning tool when working with students and trying to help them understand cost of living. The other important question to ask is, will there be jobs in the future? We want to help students have an occupation once they finish school, so understanding if they're going to be able to find an occupation is helpful. So we'll see for restaurant hosts in New Jersey, there's a very large demand for it. If I'm interested in seeing numbers, I can see that there are over 9,000 people in New Jersey employed as restaurant hosts, and every year there's 770 openings. And it tells me that this occupation is growing more slowly than average, and many job openings are expected because it's a very large occupation. Once again, this is great for students to help them plan a little bit better. Now, so far we looked at using Junior. We saw that there's an implementation framework to help us get started to decide which activities to do with our students. We went to Who Am I to look at the different overview of activities here and see the PDF and Microsoft Word documents that can be used for self-reflection for students. We also took a look at the career cluster inventory to get a list of the different career clusters based on our interests. We began our exploration of occupations, which took us to Where Are We Going? Now from here under Where Am I Going, we can also take a look at the reality check. The reality check is a planning tool that can be used for students to understand how much money it will cost to live and how that meets up with the area they want to live in and the type of education they want to get. Now this inventory is really helpful, and it helps students to get an idea of what life is like after they graduate. So I really do suggest you take a look at this inventory on your own time and go through the questions. But we can do it together as well. Students are asked where they're interested in living, what type of housing they're interested in. Notice we offer graphics as well as brief explanations when you hold your mouse over a picture. And as we go through and still make selections, green arrows will pop up indicating that we've made our selections. And it gives us lots of different options for things that we might be interested in having, so we can understand what our cost of living currently is. And once again, I do encourage you to take some time to complete this inventory yourself so you can get an idea of what students will experience as well as what kind of information is really helpful. We really try to capture everything that would be in a normal budget using this inventory so students can begin to understand what life expenses are once they get out of high school. Many times, because students are living with their parents, they don't really have a realistic expectation for cost of living or how much things actually are costing for them. And this we found is very helpful for them to be able to get an idea of what that is. So I've made my selections for living in the area of Newark, and I see here that it tells me I'll need over $3,000 every month in order to be able to afford my lifestyle. It also tells me how much money will be paid in federal and state taxes and what my total salary needed will be if I had this lifestyle. Now the great thing is now students can begin to start planning for their future. So it asks, do we know how much education or training we plan to complete? And we can make our selections based on what we know we're interested in. And the great thing is we've already taken the career cluster inventory, so we can select the career clusters that were most interesting for us. After you make those selections for your career clusters, you'll hit Next, and you'll be given a list of occupations that meet your salary requirements as well as your education requirements. So notice here, for what I'm interested in making and the area that I'm interested in making it, I have 2 different occupations that'll meet my criteria. I can become a fitness trainer or an umpire or referee. Now, if neither of these occupations look good for me, I might want to review the expenses I have and make my expenses a little bit less. I might edit my education level or my career clusters, or I can even change the city or region I'm going to live in. For example, teachers in North Jersey make more on average in salary and wages than teachers in South Jersey, so that might be an indicator of where I might want to go. So that was the reality check under tools under where am I going. The last option on here that could be interesting for us is how do I get there? What's really helpful for some students is talking about employability skills. And notice here on the left hand side we have a whole list of employability skills that might be helpful for students to develop. So notice here, for example, working together. Working together, we want students to have an activity for how to work together and then reflect about it afterwards. So this tells us, for example, the activity would be the human knot. It gives us the step-by-step instructions on how to begin the activity. And then it gives us an area afterwards to reflect a little bit about what you just took place in and about the activity. This gives students the opportunity to begin to articulate some of the skills needed for working together as a team. And this is a great reflection piece for them to be able to understand that. Once again, we do give you a Microsoft Word document as well as a PDF. In case you'd like to edit anything, you can open the Microsoft Word document and tailor it to suit your students' needs. Also under How Do I Get There is becoming a volunteer. This helps us get students into the job market. They might have something that they're very passionate about, and if they have no experience, volunteering might be the easiest way to get in there. So this helps them walk them through where they could volunteer, how to select or plan a volunteer activity. We give you tools for a volunteer resume, so students can actually complete the information prior to going into applying to be a volunteer with an organization. And once they have all that information available and ready, they'll be a little bit less nervous when going in to meet with whoever they're planning to volunteer with. We also have the thank you for the volunteer coordinator, even a reflection on volunteer activities. So we really cover all the bases from beginning to end of having a volunteer activity. And that was all under becoming a volunteer. You also might want to highlight thinking about life after school. It tells you many jobs don't require education after high school. So this helps students know that if you're not interested in necessarily going directly into any higher education, there are lots of jobs that they can have where they don't need anything besides a high school diploma. This will really help students to begin to think about that opportunity. And those were under How Do I Get There? Finally, my portfolio is everything that we've done so far. So anything that we've liked along the way will be saved under our favorites. This could include occupations that we've found that we're interested in. We'll also have our sort and assessment results, where we'll have our career cluster inventory as well as our reality check. And we have stored files and links if we want to upload and save anything on our NJCan portfolio. We also have a resume creator that you can work with students to help develop a resume. You can enter in all their information in these tabs. And then once you finish, you'll select Format and Create Resume. Let me show you an example of a sample resume. Let's take a look at a functional skills resume, for example. Now what the resume creator will do, it'll take all the information that you populated and enter it in here. So you'll see the name of the student, it'll be emboldened, it'll have all of your topics, your bold headings, your lines, your bullet points, all the alignment needed, and it'll all be organized based on the type of resume that you select. Once again, this is a functional skills resume, which is why we highlight a summary of skills and interests as the primary for this resume. And students can create as many resumes as they like, and they can save them all under their portfolio. We also have a career plan report, which is going to have all of the reflections that they've entered in as they're going through and completing activities. Once this is actually done and you work with students to complete these things, you can use this to supplement, for example, an IEP to add a little bit more depth for what students are working on. Now this is just part of NJCan. This is the junior site. We also have the high school site with some helpful information on that as well. Now on the high school site, there's a couple things that I want to point out to you that you can do with your students. You'll notice it's organized in much of the same way as the junior site with the topics along the blue toolbar. But specifically looking at assessments, there's different assessments that we can do as well, besides the career cluster inventory and the reality check. Now, the students that you're working with, you might be interested in doing the skills and work importance locator as well. And once again, we do suggest you do this directly with students because they might not be very articulate on what skills they do have, but you can help to articulate them for them. Notice here that it gives you a breakdown of how you can actually implement the skills section. We have a worksheet with cards and the ability to select skills, as well as an occupational select. And then once all of this is completed, you can get your results to understand that. Once again, we really encourage you to walk through this exercise and do this with your students to help them understand what skills that they do have. That was under assessments and skills. The other portion of this that I'd like to highlight for you is under employment. Once again, you'll notice the resume creator on here, but just as important is the job search. So what we do for the job search is we really break down the job search into steps so you can help your students to get employed. So notice we have before your search, which is going to include things like the career cluster inventory, starting your search, which is going to help your students get organized, how to create a good application or resume with Microsoft Word documents and PDFs for students to complete information here so they can use it to fill out an application later. My favorite part of this is job interviews. The job interview is going to give us a couple live demonstrations of what a good interview looks like and a bad interview looks like. And we actually start with what went wrong. And here it helps students understand the need to prepare for their interview, what they should dress for an interview, the importance of practicing for their interview, what to do during the interview, and then the importance of following up after the interview. And we provide a visual for students to take a look at so they can actually identify those things for themselves. And then after they're able to go through these steps, they can see what a good interview looks like. We also have a section for job success. So once again, these are similar to employability skills in the middle school site, except that there's a little bit more information on here. So notice how it talks about good work habits, understanding your team, and these are all different ways that you can help students to understand what it's like to be employed and how to keep that employment. If I find information along the way that I really like, I can save it for later and I can have it in my portfolio for me. So these are just the beginnings of how to get started on NJCan. There's obviously a lot more on here, and I really encourage you to take the time to be able to look through it yourself to understand what's most important for your students. A couple things I'm going to remind you of is how to navigate to the junior site is simply the go to button on the left, and that'll take you back and forth between the junior and the high school site. And then as site administrators and staff, you might be interested in going back to site administration. So on the top black toolbar, you'll hit return to and select site administration. The last thing I'm going to show you before I go is the curriculum option. We have over 600 pieces of curriculum on NJCan. And the curriculum option really does break everything down for you. So you might be interested in being able to teach something on advisory and look for curriculum in that section. And to do that, you would select subject area, put in advisory, and then you'll select search. We do have other subject areas as well, such as math or reading or science, language arts, and they all have a list of curriculum as well. So to take a quick look at one of the different sets of curriculum, you'll see here for the attitude adjustment, it tells us at a glance what we're hoping to do. It tells us what the essential questions are, how we should be preparing, day 1 and day 2 and different ways to vary this, where this will help in their portfolio, the materials you need, so the PowerPoints, the PDFs, the Microsoft Word documents, as well as the Common Core state standards that it fulfills. So you can see there's a lot of information on here that you can work with in order to help you get a better understanding of how to use this for your students. So that's all we're going to cover looking at NJCan. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out. You can reach me at njcantraining@gmail.com. Best of luck.